San Marino is so small. You could walk across the entire country in less than an hour. A nation tinier than most cities. A place many assume survived only by luck. And yet, for 1.700 years, San Marino has never fallen. Never been erased. Never lost its independence. While empires around it rose and crumbled into dust. So the question is, how does a country this tiny stay alive for this long? To understand that mystery, we must go back to the year 301 AD. A time when the Roman Empire was collapsing into chaos, persecution, and civil war. Amid this turmoil, a stonecutter named Marinus fled from his home and climbed the cliffs of Mount Titano, seeking a place where Rome's soldiers would never follow. Prompt image 2. Marinus had no intention of founding a nation. He was simply a refugee. A man without an army, without power, without land. But when he reached the summit of Titano, where clouds brushed against the earth, and no empire bothered to climb, Marinus found something mighty empires never had. Absolute peace. Others fleeing Roman persecution soon followed him. They built shelters, a small chapel, and farms, forming one of the earliest independent mountain communities in Europe. No kings, no nobles, no oppression, just a simple society, held together by the desire to live free. Though small, this community held a philosophy no other European state had at the time. We do not seek enemies. We do not seek conquest. We only defend our freedom. Strangely, this peaceful idea would become the strongest weapon San Marino ever possessed. As the years passed, the settlement slowly grew into a tiny state, guided by a simple but powerful rule. Do not attack others. Do not compete for land. Do not provoke bigger powers. And in return, every empire around them simply did not see San Marino as an enemy worth destroying. By quietly staying out of every conflict and choosing survival over ambition, San Marino created something incredibly rare in European history. A nation too small to threaten anyone, but too united to be erased. A place where freedom survived, even when the world around it burned. As the centuries passed, larger powers slowly took notice of the tiny community perched on Mount Titano. Yet every time an army marched through the Italian peninsula, something strange happened. San Marino was simply ignored. Not out of mercy, not out of kindness, but because San Marino was built on a mountain so steep, so inconvenient, and so difficult to attack, that most armies decided it simply wasn't worth the effort. In an age of conquest, the smartest survival strategy was to be too small, too high, and too unprofitable to invade. Unlike wealthy cities with trade routes or fertile plains, San Marino offered nothing of value for invaders. No gold, no ports, barely enough land to farm. To conquer San Marino meant spending soldiers, money, and time for a reward that barely filled a pocket. Even ambitious generals looked up at Mount Titano and realized, why bother? In the brutal logic of medieval warfare, San Marino survived because destroying it brought no benefit. But geography wasn't the only shield protecting the tiny republic. San Marino mastered something even more powerful: the art of neutrality. While nearby cities fought endless wars, switched allegiances, or rebelled against larger kingdoms, San Marino quietly stayed out of every conflict. If two empires clashed, San Marino didn't pick a side. If a warlord rose to power, San Marino didn't resist. But they also didn't assist. They became a kind of ghost state, present, but never threatening. And while remaining neutral, San Marino built relationships instead of armies. They negotiated. They gifted. They traded favors. The tiny republic learned that friendship with powerful neighbors was far safer and far cheaper than building walls or raising troops. By the 14th century, San Marino had gained something priceless: a reputation for loyalty, honesty, and political harmlessness. Rulers came and went. Borders shifted. Empires collapsed. But San Marino remained the same. Predictable and trustworthy. Many powerful Italian families, the Malatesta, the Montefeltro, the Papal States, fought bitterly for control of the region. Yet even when armies marched within sight of Mount Titano, San Marino was spared. Neighboring lords used the tiny republic as neutral ground, as a place where messages could be exchanged without risk of betrayal. San Marino became a safe island in a sea of political storms. By the Renaissance, San Marino had gained something extraordinary: international recognition. Italy was not yet a unified country, but powerful states acknowledged San Marino's sovereignty because it posed no threat to their ambitions. And once a nation survives long enough, its existence becomes difficult to question. San Marino wasn't a rebel city. It wasn't a breakaway region. It had always been independent, long before most of Europe even existed in its modern form. By the year 1600, San Marino wrote down its own constitution, one of the oldest in the world still in use today. While kingdoms kept falling, while borders kept changing, San Marino kept reinforcing a single idea: we are small, but we are legitimate. And as more empires rose, that legitimacy, that quiet, consistent existence, turned San Marino into a political fact no conqueror bothered to challenge. By the time Europe entered the Age of Giants, Napoleon's empire, the Papal States, and later Fascist Italy, San Marino had already perfected its survival strategy. But surviving the medieval world was one thing. Surviving Napoleon was something else entirely. When Napoleon Bonaparte swept across Europe, entire kingdoms disappeared in months. Ancient republics like Venice were erased forever. The map of Italy changed faster than anyone could understand. Yet on a small mountain, barely visible from afar, San Marino remained exactly where it had always been. Quiet, steady, untouched. And against all logic, Napoleon didn't conquer it. He protected it. In 1797, Napoleon's generals sent word to San Marino. They expected the usual response: resistance, negotiation, or fear. But San Marino simply sent two humble envoys. With no gold, no soldiers, no political agenda, just honesty. They told Napoleon, "We are a tiny republic. We harm no one. We only wish to live in peace." That sincerity surprised Napoleon more than any army ever could. Napoleon, impressed by their simplicity, did something no conqueror had ever done. He granted San Marino official protection. He even offered them territory, a chance to expand their country for the first time in history. But in an astonishing act of self-restraint, San Marino declined. They said, "We do not wish to enlarge ourselves. We only wish to preserve our freedom." This refusal baffled Napoleon. Most nations begged him for land, power, or alliances. But San Marino asked for nothing, and expected nothing. And that, ironically, made Napoleon respect them more. A nation without greed was a nation he did not need to fear. So he issued a remarkable statement: San Marino shall remain free and independent, protected from all enemies. While Europe trembled under French rule, San Marino stood untouched, not because it was strong, but because it was wise. When Napoleon eventually fell, many states he built collapsed with him. But San Marino? It remained exactly as it was. A tiny republic, unchanged by wars, That reshaped the world. Napoleon learned the truth about San Marino. You cannot conquer what does not seek to fight. You cannot rule over those who ask for nothing. San Marino's survival was no longer an accident. It had become a masterpiece of diplomacy, humility, and the quiet power of staying small. In the 20th century, a darker storm rose over Italy. Benito Mussolini and the fascist regime. Cities fell under authoritarian rule. Dissenters disappeared. The entire Italian peninsula seemed to obey one man. And yet, right in the center of Mussolini's Italy, San Marino, tiny, isolated, defenseless, remained free. Mussolini admired strength, expansion, and absolute control. But San Marino possessed none of these things. And surprisingly, that's exactly what protected it. A dictatorship seeks enemies. It fears rivals. It crushes threats. San Marino was none of those. It posed no threat, claimed no land, and opposed no one. In fact, Mussolini realized something important. Invading San Marino would gain him nothing, and cost him international credibility. Why conquer a nation that had never harmed anyone? Why provoke outrage over a republic of just a few thousand people? It would make Mussolini appear not powerful, but petty. During World War II, San Marino declared neutrality, just as it had done for centuries. But when Allied forces bombed the region by mistake, San Marino opened its borders to shelter more than 100,000 Italian refugees. A country smaller than many towns, protected people far larger than itself. Neutrality had become compassion. This act earned San Marino enormous moral respect. A nation so small, saving tens of thousands of lives during one of Europe's darkest hours. After the war, Allied commanders apologized formally and recognized San Marino's bravery and neutrality. And so, once again, San Marino did what no one expected. It survived another era of dictators, invasions, and global conflict, without losing a single piece of its independence. From Napoleon to Mussolini, from medieval warlords to modern armies, San Marino endured every age. Not through force, but through wisdom. Next, we enter the heart of the mystery. How a tiny nation created one of the strangest governments in Europe. And how that system kept it alive. Every 6 months, the country chooses 2 new leaders. No one stays in power for long. No family, no party, no faction gains dominance. This system prevents dictatorships. It prevents corruption. It prevents ego. Power never belongs to a person, only to the office. And the office expires quickly. Every 6 months, the country chooses 2 new leaders. No one stays in power for long. No family, no party, no faction gains dominance. This system prevents dictatorships. It prevents corruption. It prevents ego. Power never belongs to a person, only to the office. And the office expires quickly. The captain's regent must agree with each other on every major decision. If one abuses power, the other can stop him. If both fail, they are replaced within months. This balance is neither monarchy nor democracy. It is something older, quieter, and remarkably stable. This dual rule system dates back to ancient Rome, inspired by the Roman consuls, who shared power to prevent tyranny. While the Roman Empire collapsed, San Marino kept the idea alive, refining it into a system that survived every political earthquake in Europe. San Marino even has a law that allows citizens to sue the captain's regent after their 6-month term ends if they misuse power. Imagine a country where the people can judge their leaders every half year. Few modern nations offer that level of accountability. And yet, despite this constant renewal of power, San Marino remains astonishingly calm. No coups, no civil wars, no violent transitions. The secret? Everyone knows power is temporary. No one fights to keep it. In the end, San Marino's political miracle is not its mountains, nor its neutrality, but its humility. A tiny nation that mastered the art of letting go, of sharing power, rotating leadership, and avoiding the hunger that destroys empires. Today, San Marino is one of the oldest surviving republics on Earth. Its neighbors have changed countless times. Borders have shifted. Empires have risen and died. But San Marino endures. A mountain of continuity, in a continent of chaos. Economically, the country is small, yet surprisingly efficient. It thrives on tourism, craftsmanship, collectible stamps, low taxes, and a financial system built on trust, not exploitation. Unlike many microstates, San Marino never became a tax haven of corruption. It kept its system simple, clean, transparent, and because it stayed small, the people stayed connected. Corruption cannot hide. In a country where everyone knows everyone, San Marino's strength is not military, not economy, not territory. Its strength is identity, a collective agreement to remain who they are, no matter what the world becomes. In a world obsessed with growth, San Marino chose survival. In a world obsessed with power, San Marino chose peace. In a world obsessed with dominance, San Marino chose neutrality. And these choices built a nation that outlived conquerors, kings, and dictators. San Marino teaches us something profound. A nation does not need to be large to be strong. It does not need to conquer to be respected. It does not need to expand to endure. Sometimes, survival itself is the greatest victory. After 1.700 years, San Marino remains a quiet miracle, a reminder that simplicity can be power, humility can be strength, and a tiny mountain community can outlive the greatest empires in history. This is the story of the world's most enduring small nation, a republic that refused to disappear.